Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into Bell Stadium in Orange, New Jersey for today's Week 9 matchup between the Boston Whitecaps and the New York Rumble. I'm Jeff Poster alongside Dusty Rhodes. Glad you could join us on our MLU live stream here in Week 9. The Whitecaps right now sitting in second place in the East at 5-2, and New York at the bottom of the pile, 2-5, looking to play the spoiler to the Whitecaps' very slim home field playoff chances. It's muggy day here at Bell Stadium. Rain definitely, potentially in the forecast. 72 degrees at the start of game time, and there is definitely a thunderstorm watch out there. We'll hopefully be able to avoid that one and get this game in.
Luckily, it seems to be flying a little bit north of us. It's been a little wet out here today, and the disc, while it shouldn't be totally slippery, the turf might be a little bit of an issue, even though we've got, the artificial turf, which is a little bit better than slicked down grass. It could still be a little bit of a problem out there, depending on which cleats people have selected.
Well, it looks like we're good to go here with the Whitecaps receiving the disc to start. Marquez Brownlee pulls first for the Rumble as Matt Little reels it in and gets it up to Jake Taylor.
They're coming out in a vertical stack here to start. McNaughton was covered pretty well by Brownlee.
Ben Katz and Little both missing in yesterday's action as the Whitecaps were defeated by the Philadelphia Spinners 24-20. So effectively, at the moment, Philadelphia does have home field locked up for the playoffs, but the Whitecaps will need to win this game in order to keep pressure on the Spinners.
I think it'll be a really big help to have specifically Little back, because a lot of the issues that the Whitecaps had yesterday were in their handler sets. It wasn't quite the timing that they were looking for, but having him added back in should help them a bit.
Find Katz on the far side. Katz was listed as doubtful for this weekend with a back injury, but you see, doesn't seem to have any problems throwing in that goal to Piers McNaughton.
And that was a long Whitecaps possession. It didn't entirely work as smoothly as they might have hoped, but their ability to stick with it and stick in that vertical stack, very methodically attack the field the entire way up, if they can do that against the Rumble all day today, that'll put them in a good spot to win. But the Rumble were playing solid defense. They had a couple opportunities for a block if the throwers were not reading the defense quite as well or anything along those lines. So it's a good start for the Rumble, even though the Whitecaps got a nice calm goal out of their first offensive point.
Get our first look at the Rumble offense coming up. Rumble have definitely improved week to week here. They're also coming off a bye. Whitecaps did not play last week as well. Had a tough 17-16 loss at DC their last time out 2 weeks ago. They actually outscored the Current 6-1 in that fourth quarter, but DC held on just enough to come up with the victory, and the Rumble were effectively eliminated from the postseason as a result.
At that point, they should have enough time to sit and think about what they want to do against the Whitecaps today.
Charlie Patton moves it up to Hunziker. In the hands now of Sean Mott. Mott sends a Blady pass with his left hand to Hunziker. Now Hunziker looks towards the end zone. It's contested, but come down with it is the Rumble. And they get the sky grab for a score.
And while they ended up scoring as well, that was more of an issue for the team as a whole. We saw that throw from Mott to Hunziker. That was about stall 5.5, 6.5, somewhere around there. And the pressure from the Whitecaps was not letting the Rumble get comfortably into any offensive sets. They scored that point anyway, but they looked far less confident than the Whitecaps did, even though it was a much shorter score.
So we tied up here at 1, 8:44 left to go in the first quarter. As the Rumble attack quickly, Mason Compton gets the goal from Quinn Hunziker.
And Hunziker, again, used a high outside-in flick to sit it out for the height and the awareness of Compton to come down with the play there.
Boston in there, white tops, blue numbers and trim. Rumble in the green tops with the gold pinstripes and the black shorts as Jake Taylor sends it deep. Looking downfield for Misha Herskew, comes up with it. Drops back for Christian Foster. Foster had 8 assists yesterday, gets another one. McNaughton reels that one in with one hand for his second score of the afternoon.
And there's two things from Boston on that point that we actually saw a lot of yesterday. The first thing that was that we saw Herskew running deep, and in this case, he was open enough that the thrower had an opportunity to lay out an easy flick, long-distance flick, sure, but it looked pretty calm and easy from Taylor on the toss. And then we saw Christian Foster taking a big crossfield throw with that quickly snapped flick all the way to the other side. And then even more on top of that, we saw Piers McNaughton being heavily involved in the offense. Little questionable on that throw from Foster. McNaughton had to make quite a nice grab coming back to the disc to make the play. But on the whole, that's two reasonably easy scores for the Whitecaps.
McNaughton gets his now 13th and 14th goal of the season. Foster leads the team in assists. That's number 20 for him.
8 of those were yesterday.
Yeah.
So he started at 11 on the weekend, and now he's almost up to 20.
Here we go. New York's second look on offense.
New York's coming out in a bit of a split stack here. So they've got 2 receivers on one side, 3 on the other.
Mythos gives it back to Mott. Big by Baker, but Sisto comes down with it. Mott again.
This is the evolution of Mott as a player. We're seeing more of him in the underneath role in addition to still pressuring deep.
Continue on to Hunziker on the far side. New York threatening. And they were looking for Mott again, but a little bit ahead of them. And Boston will get their first opportunity for a break.
It's a throwing error, and the first turnover of the day is on New York's part, so Boston will get the first break opportunity. Sitting in a vertical stack here, and Boston's tightness in that stack, a little too much motion caused a pick, so the throw will go back, and they'll lose 10 yards on the exchange.
Yeah, back into the end zone. Eric Stevens starts it off. Stevens sends it deep right away. Baker with a step ahead of Sisto brings it in.
And he was open enough that he had more steps than just one. The throw was a little bit low. I mean, a little bit behind the receiver, had to come back to it. But Boston's getting a good opportunity here.
Jordan Taylor sends it back. Dylan Wolf brings it in. Helped out by Murphy. And we'll swing it over to Braz. Braz left unmarked right now. Centers it back with Wolf. Baker was taken off for the end zone. They don't look his way, and this is going to be led a little bit too much. No, they say Wolf's got it. Excellent layout.
He got both hands out there. Seems that he got it early enough.
Sends it to Stevens, and then Baker finally finds the end zone. Boston gets their first break of the game and takes a 3-1 lead at 6:37 left.
The ability of Boston to slowly wear through the New York defense was kind of what got them all the way up the field. New York gave good chase for the most part, but that big game-breaking, or point-breaking rather, we shouldn't call the game broken quite yet.
No,
but
still very
the
early.
big throw down the field to Baker was what made that so much easier. It looked like they were a little stagnant after that, but they stuck with it. This is one of the things that we could rely on from Boston for the most part, is they don't rush most of their possessions.
Boston, of course, went into this weekend very short-handed, and roster continues to change even from day to day. They lost 3 players that were active yesterday to now on the inactive list: Tanner Johnson, Davis Whitehead, and Victor Lua. They gained back Matt Little and Ben Katz, but then they also lose their captain John Hirschberger. Tweaked his foot injury that he's been dealing with on and off this season and is on the sidelines holding the clipboard.
Seems a little confused as to how they want to start here.
Put it out into space. Nice job, though, by Meeser. Got just enough of it in front of the Boston defense.
This seems to be a mostly defensive line for New York after that two-minute long offensive point where they gave up a break to Boston. It's good to get a new set of players out and get them all touches on the disc for the rest of the game as well.
Schraub got to Brownlee, to O'Connor, and then Brownlee, they wanted to get back to him, and Doherty lays out, knocks it away, gets the block on the league's leader in blocks.
Doherty's ability to quickly change direction and be aware of the disc is the sort of thing that leads him into blocks, and it led him into that Callahan a couple weeks ago as well.
Sends it up to Foster. Foster has to send a long backhand across the field, and Brownlee going for the block. Yeah. Knocks over Ben Katz and is called for the foul.
Yeah, you got to give the 10-yard foul there. There's a little too much contact, but he did have a play on the disc. It was just a little bit short, and his path took him through the Whitecaps player a bit there. Boston sets up in a very strict vertical stack and immediately goes to the break side.
Another whistle, pick
Yep.
against Boston.
Not quite clean enough. That means that somebody was moving where they weren't supposed to, or the set was a little bit off. So we'll go back to the thrower here.
Cats will take it back right at midfield, dead center.
Yep, about 5 minutes gone in this first quarter, and we're at 3-1. So kind of slow going in this first quarter, especially compared to that third quarter yesterday.
Cat sends a flick. That'll carry all the way into the end zone. Foster a couple of steps ahead of his defender, leaps up. And Boston's got back-to-back breaks.
That break specifically was yet another thing that we saw yesterday from the Whitecaps as well. Foster came out of the stack, made a horizontal cut off to the sideline, and then once he hit the sideline, or maybe a little bit early, turned and went deep from there. And the thrower put that disc up as soon as he saw the back of the defender, so the defender never saw the throw go up and never had an opportunity to give a good chase to it, and it sat directly out in front of Foster.
So 4-1 now, the score 4:51, and we mentioned Sean Doherty. He got the layout D that ended up, he was our player to watch for today's game on the Whitecap side of the disc.
Yeah, he has a tendency to just always be in the right place and always be ready. He leads his team in break goals. I believe he's up at 10 at this point, and that's very near the league lead. In fact, he's one of the few players on the Whitecaps who is a league leader coming into this game, or coming into this weekend, I should say, because with the number of assists that Foster's thrown, he's got to be near the league lead for that as well.
Still very far behind the overall league leader is Cody Bjorklund's up above 30.
That's quite a chase, but they force feed that fellow the disc.
Mott gets it out to Compton. Compton on the far side. Looking for Charlie Patton. Bottled up.
It's a good find there. Boston's defense is tight all over the field. They're within a couple steps everywhere, and they're just not giving anything free until a little bit of miscommunication here.
There it is. Sisto into the end zone, and it's Mott who finds him there. And New York gets one back, makes it 4-2.
And it wasn't so much that he beat a one-on-one coverage there. It's that Boston's team-level defense broke down. There was a player on Boston, it looked like Rob Baker, who was stuck in the offensive backfield. So he was behind the disc, and the player that he was either previously covering or was meant to be covering was running free into the end zone by himself. It's not usually how you design a defense to leave a player open in the end zone.
New York under head coaches Anthony Nunez and Eileen Murray. Nunez in his third season. He's 6-22 overall. Eileen, her first season as a co-head coach, was an assistant last year, 2-6, her overall record. Boston under head coach Sam Rosenthal, also his third season. He's 19-11, assisted by Tom Matthews and Mike Miller. A pretty good pull from New York. We'll get some hang time as Thomas Edmonds moves over to track it down.
Boston out of a horizontal stack here sends Christian Foster across the front, but that's just a throwaway from Little.
Yeah, Little puts it up to space, and New York was there to occupy it. Coming down with it was Justin Carter. Now in control, Cannon. Cannon swings it around to Carter. Carter throws it into the end zone, and New York's got their first break of the game.
And that's the sort of error that happens to just about every team at some point during the game. But given Boston's two-game weekend, played a lot of points. The players who played last night played a lot of points today. It's the sort of error that could put them in trouble over the course of the game, as players like Christian Foster played 27 points yesterday. Generally, the team leaders on points don't play above a 20 to 22, somewhere in that range. So Boston has to be careful of not giving away the disc for free too often. Even though errors happen, they need to be ready and tamp those down in terms of just giving the disc away.
Kyle Fisher gets the score for the Rumble. Carter gets the assist, and he was our player to watch on the Rumble side of the disc.
Yeah, since he's shown up, he's scored 8 points in the last 2 games. And he's recorded a goal, an assist, and a block in both of the games in the last 2 weeks. He's been a good addition to their team.
Try and get another break because it's another deep pull. So not a lot of wind here today as they knock it down.
Now that play, on the other hand, that was a D for New York. That was
Like Meeser.
I was going to say that was Meeser getting the block there, and it was a poach read from the far side.
They find Brownlee.
It's not the sort of play that most throwers are going to see coming, and with the speed of Meeser and his ability to read that defense, get there in a hurry, that gives New York their quick 2 breaks right back.
Marquez Brownlee gets the goal. That's his 10th of the year. And just like that, tied up at 4 with 3:36 left to go.
At this point, New York's got to be thinking, okay, so we're in this game. Boston's not just going to blow us out. They're going to get 2 breaks. We're going to get 2 breaks right back. And now they're going to get an opportunity for their 3rd break. That was a really good play by Meeser. Didn't make a lot of contact coming through, a little bit of contact on the arms. But when you're making a D from the blind side like that, you want to take so much care not to make contact to a player who's unaware of your presence. Because if he was aware of your presence, that disc wouldn't be thrown
right.
there.
This pull very high.
Sitting down pretty well. As long as it stays on the field, this is excellent.
It's going to. And New York has had 3 straight really nice pulls in this game. Jake Taylor picks it up 5 yards out of the end zone. Stevens unleashes a flick that's deep. McNaughton trying to box out Doyle.
Yeah, nice block.
And Doyle wins the battle.
Oh,
giving him a foul, though.
And the 2 refs are disagreeing there. I don't think that was a foul, so I agree with the far ref, who was not signaling for a foul. The close ref signaled for a foul, and I'm not sure he had the correct angle to call that, but I thought it was a good play. More importantly, though, Stevens on that isolation cut to start before he put up the deep throw made an excellent cut to get to his defender's blind side and just shook him out of his shoes.
McNaughton sends it around to Taylor. Taylor puts it up towards the end zone, and it bounces off the hands of his receiver.
As we sometimes say,
Foster.
Disc don't lie.
Yeah, that's right. So New York with a chance for their 3rd straight break and to take their first lead of the game. Here's Doyle. Cannon. He's got a man going deep. This will hang up in the air, allow Boston's defense to get over. And skying everybody for the grab is Fisher. Reset. Bo Lee looking to punch it in. Sends it through the defense. And just like that, Colin Koshinash and the New York Rumble have their 5-4 lead over the Whitecaps.
Yeah, it's good timing for the New York Rumble to get calm on that offense possession. They threw that deep pass up. It hung a little bit much, but the player was able to read it appropriately, get up in the air at the right time, and then it was all just a matter of waiting for Bo Lee to find the right player in the end zone and make it an assist.
I believe Boston has used their first time out here to try and settle down. They've just given up 3 straight breaks, something they do not do historically, especially against a team like New York.
I mean, they lost that game last night, 24-21, and they didn't give up 2 consecutive breaks during that entire game. So New York has come out here with the confidence and the ability to stick with them and take the punch that Boston delivered early on and then deliver a blow back.
So while we've got a minute here during the timeout, let's visit our keys to the game coming into this one. First for the visiting Whitecaps, coming off a loss and trying to keep the pressure on Philadelphia. What do they got to do to win this game?
Well, the first is that they nearly never lose to New York to begin with. Over the course of the MLU, they average a 7-point victory against New York in every single game. They've won by as many as 17, and they won by as few as 2. They managed to lose 1 in that entire time. And one of the key things for Boston is that they have no rogue waves, which means they don't have any players who go off script. Yeah. This is one of the ways that they get a bunch of players with goals and assists and not too many league leaders in any specific category. And the thing that we think about today in this specific game is this an opportunity or is this a trap? Were they so excited about the game last night, and despite the fact that they lost, how are they going to deal with the game coming in today? Are they just going to overlook New York, or are they going to look at New York and say, we're just going to feast on this team today? When they came out to start, they got their early breaks, but New York had an opportunity to break back and get ahead in this game.
And New York just used their first timeout to set up a midfield pull, so we get back-to-back timeouts. Try and visit New York's keys as soon as we get a chance here. With 2:24 left to go here in the first quarter, New York getting aggressive.
Yeah, I like the call here. I was pretty sure that one of the two teams was going to call a timeout after that point because it was a long run for Boston on offense, which means it's an opportunity either for them to collect themselves or for New York to try to take that advantage into this next point.
So it'll be Brownlee pulling. This sails right out the back.
Just throw it too flat. It carries a little bit farther when you throw it flat. If you get a little blade on it, a little more angle, bank to the disc, it'll dive down at the end of the flight path rather than sailing out the back. That's kind of a wasted timeout after Boston took their timeout to start, and then New York tried to pull from midfield. Now it lets them start 20 yards out of the end zone rather than in the back.
Taylor will start it off as Boston operates in a horizontal, and he's looking for Herskew, and it just goes off his hand, so it'll work out in New York's favor anyway.
Again, I don't know how he knew that was going to happen, but it was apparently the correct decision to just throw it out the back.
Mott. Doyle has it again. Doyle in a little bit of trouble trying to get around Little. There's a bump, no call.
Seems like a pretty long stall there.
And then they look to put it to the end zone. It carries in. And New York's got another score. Hands of Weintraub.
And he's one of their leaders in assists. Not usually the guy catching those goals. Usually a person heavily involved in the end zone offense, though. So if he catches the disc, doesn't throw an assist, he's generally in a position to cut up line and provide a valid scoring threat. So that's 5 straight goals for New York, 4 of which are breaks. And I'm not sure Boston was prepared for this in any way.
Probably not at all. They expected to come in and win this one, but right now, New York has got all the momentum with 1:51 left to go. Sean Mott gets the assist. Weintraub the goal. Only his 3rd of the year, so like you said, Dusty, he throws them. Doesn't usually catch them, though. Mott gets his 16th assist. Or, excuse me, 17th. He's already got, that's his 2nd of the game.
Yeah. And Mott's been doing very well over the course of this season. He's had a bunch of highlight plays, but he's also learned to leverage his threat as a deep cutter to be a more effective underneath cutter and a more effective distributor within the offense.
McNaughton has it. McNaughton drops it back for Taylor. Hulkyard coming in. First touch for him tonight. Drops it back for Cooper. Minute and a half left to go in the quarter. McNaughton again.
New York's in a forced middle defense here, so they're switching their marks at different points. Boston should be ready to deal with that, but it's always a good way to change up what your look is.
Cooper gets it around Lee to Hulkyard. Really making Boston work and burn their legs, which they do not have a lot of today.
The key for Boston is that they just need to score. It can be long, it can be short, it doesn't matter. The disc just needs to be caught in the end zone.
Taylor finds Foster. 5 yards out to McNaughton as they continue to swing it. Edmonds had a nice night last night, 4 goals, switching over to the offense. Goes through a crowd. Can they catch up to it and stay in bounds? Yes.
Just barely.
Yeah, exactly.
He was running out of real estate in a hurry as he got all the way over to the far side. And while they got that goal, I wouldn't describe any of the last 6 possessions for Boston's offense as confident. And now it's up to their defense. We kind of thought that their defense would come into this game, get a bunch of breaks against New York, but almost because their offense could be relied upon to be solid throughout the game. Now it's necessary for their defense. So how will their defense deal with that pressure over the rest of this game? Will they start rushing into block looks? Will they get outside of their defensive structure? Will one player try to do too much? Or will they be able to stay with their team concept for the rest of this match?
Ben Katz gets the goal. Katz already with 3 points, 2 assists and a goal in this one. And makes it 6-5. Just 43 seconds left to go here in the first quarter. New York ahead of Boston. New York has not generally found themselves with a lot of leads this season. A couple of the 2 wins they have were both big comebackers.
That comeback against D.C. earlier in the season, that was
huge.
Impressive, and they nearly had one, as we mentioned earlier, in the most recent game against D.C.
Patton gets it over to Mott. Mott, the focal point of this offense. Another guy be Hunziker. See releases right there. Back to Patton.
And you can tell that
again.
And you can tell that Boston is treating Sean Mott as a key part of the offense. That they've put Doherty on him, and that's the sort of player that they like to use to remove a player from the offense.
Hunziker sends it around to Patton. 8 seconds. New York's got to manage this clock, and they throw it away. Boston's not going to get over there quick enough to pick it up. Jordan Taylor turns on the Jets, but when you got to get to the disc 30 yards away in 4 seconds.
Exactly. If he had known beforehand that turnover was coming, possibly he'd be fast enough to get there. But we've got a surprising first quarter on our hands here in New Jersey. I was about to say New York, but
about a half hour out of New York City.
Pretty close. And while that whole quarter felt like it was kind of New York's, they are only up 1 point going into the second quarter, and that's in part because early on in the game, Boston got their breaks. They got 2 early breaks, and then New York answered with 4 breaks. We should be set for an interesting match. New York has to be careful not to be overconfident now. They've shown that they can get 4 breaks. 4 breaks isn't usually enough to beat the Whitecaps because they're going to get back against your team in break. They average 7 breaks per game against all opponents. Against New York, they tend to average more than 7 breaks per game.
So while we're talking about New York, let's visit their keys to the game as we come in and have the break here in action in between quarters. 6-5 game, New York on top of Boston.
And for New York, one of the first things that we want to talk about with their team is their surprising results. They've only got 2 wins, but one of those wins was in a travel all the way across the country to play in San Francisco. One of those wins was on a huge comeback against DC that we just mentioned. And they also had another giant comeback that just fell short against DC. So they've shown the ability to go on runs. They have to make sure that they use their strengths. Brownlee leads the league with 19 blocks. Mott has 161 points played in the league. Brownlee is 5th with 145. And Weintraub is tied for 2nd in the league with 12 break assists, just behind Ethan Peck of the Spinners, who has 13, or had 13 before last night's game. And what they need to do in order to use those players the most is play them a lot, but not too much. You don't want to overplay them and get them tired out, but you don't want to take them off the field either. And the last is they want to get ahead early. Win or lose, Boston is in their second game in the last day. And if New York can take advantage of any sluggishness on the part of the Whitecaps, they could surprise Boston. And lo and behold,
so far so
they've
good
surprised them a little bit on that.
We'll take this time to thank Canterbury, the official apparel supplier to Major League Ultimate. Dress like a pro. Visit www.canterburyus.com, the destination for all your team's custom uniforms and athletic apparel needs. Canterbury, proud partner of Major League Ultimate, committed to the game. Do you have a team trip or corporate outing coming up? If so, charter a private bus, minibus, or party bus from busrental.com, a U.S. Coachways company. Bus travel is one of the safest, greenest, and most affordable ways to get your group to an event. If you're going with the group, trust busrental.com. Enter coupon code MLUBUS and get additional savings and VIP treatment. Getting set to go here in the start of the second quarter. It's 6-5, New York on top of Boston.
I'm looking forward to the rest of this game. I wasn't sure if New York was going to be up to it. I mean, mentally, they were certainly prepared, and they wanted to believe that they could do it, but now they've shown the ability to convert on those easy errors that the Whitecaps have made, and they've also shown the ability to go out and get a couple blocks and get the disc for their defensive team to try to get down and get the break goals that they're going to need to get into this one, or to stay ahead in this one, I should say.
And it looks just maybe over to our left. The clouds might be trying to break up here. We hopefully avoid the rain.
There's a spot of sunshine. We
a
like
little
that.
bit, just enough. You can see the light coming in.
We're not getting it. It's not quite the right thing to get those sorts of shafts of light that come out of the clouds, which is one of my favorites to see. It's also a favorite of painters everywhere.
Yeah, definitely. So New York will start with the disc as Mythos brings it in off the pull up to Mott. Center, and Mott unleashes right away. Hunziker downfield. Hunziker tracks it down ahead of Doherty. Has to drop back as he ran into the end zone, and then he tosses it in to Compton.
That's a nice connection there between Mott and Hunziker. They've played together for long enough at high school levels, at club levels, So they have sort of a connection, and they have an understanding that when Mott unleashes that lefty backhand, Hunsaker will have the ability to track it down and challenge anyone in the air who's nearby. But then Mott also has to have the trust to put it out well in front of him.
It's already Compton's second of the game. Scored the very first one. And it was from Hunsaker, too.
And the way that New York has come out in that last offensive point, they were using Mott as their showpiece cutter out of the horizontal, the split stack that they used. They put him sort of in the middle of the field, isolated against Andrew Hooker. Hooker did a solid job. He was only open by a couple steps, but a couple steps and then getting that completion to the second player, that's what your pull play is all about.
This is actually the second to last game already for New York this season. They will play Boston one more time in Boston. That's the last week, week 11. McNaughton back to Little. Layout bid, and actually might have smacked the head of Justin Carter, but he gets the D all the same.
And Carter's block there was set up for so much earlier. He was much faster than Hershey on that specific cut, knew where he was getting to, and set that block up. The thrower should not have thrown that pass.
Cannon gets the goal. And just like that, New York has an 8-5 lead.
That's the sort of play that we're talking about, where New York can actually go get the disc from their opponents. Many times, teams that are less successful over the course of the season rely on errors from their opponent, but New York over the course of the season has been getting blocks. They have the league leader in blocks, and they have a number of other players who have also gone on to get blocks. Their issue has been more with unforced errors and not valuing their break opportunities. If they continue to score on their break opportunities like they are so far today, they're going to take it to the Whitecaps.
So far, so good for the New York Rumble. 8-5 lead. 9:19 left to go in the first half. Brownlee pulling. Like I said, we've definitely seen improvements from the Rumble week to week. And what's nice to see is even though they're out of playoff contention, they are hungry. Sending Halkyard deep, and he's not going to catch up to that one.
That's a complete thrower error. Halkyard was uncovered. There was no one within 30 yards from him, and I believe it was Taylor on the throw there. Just throw it so hard and tried to get it there in so much of a rush that he overthrew it and didn't give his receiver an opportunity to catch it.
O'Connor on the far side of the field as New York looks for yet another break. Brownlee. And back to O'Connor, about the same spot. Pushes it up along the sideline to Finkler. Drops back for O'Connor again.
And Jonathan Irvine was open on the deep cut there. They decided not to throw it to him. Mark Sands, who just had the disc there, was also open on a deep cut. New York's showing some patience right now.
A little bit of a push. Contact from Taylor.
Taylor's given a little bit of the business as the thrower's trying to walk up the field as well.
And they've got it. They caught Ben Katz poaching off a bit, or just wasn't ready. And immediately throw it in.
And Irvine gets that easy goal there. He found the space, got over there, created separation from his defender, and this Rumble team is taking nothing for granted right now. They didn't try to go for the big shot early, though I believe they probably could have hit it. They instead stuck with their offense, maintained their composure, got a stoppage, and then ran a nice quick set play off of that stop.
Boston left searching for answers right now, trailing 9-5 with 8:13 left to go. Weintraub gets the assist, as he does a lot of.
Well, that's exactly the sort of play that he gets those assists on. It's a set play, an easy-to-read offense, and he has the throws to deliver it. The other situations where he gets it are sort of moving across the field, handler give and goes, little break passes, that sort of thing. But either way, the ability to consistently find assists is what separates him from a lot of other throwers.
Pull, tracked down by Edmonds, right up to Taylor. I think Boston is in must-score-now mode.
Well, and that's the tough thing, is that when you're on offense, that pressure doesn't really help you in any way.
Little sends it to Taylor. Finds Jordan Taylor.
Interesting layout there, about 5 feet behind the disc.
Not for a lack of effort.
And New York is still here in their force middle defense. I'm not sure. Maybe that has some of the issue of Boston is not finding the timing in their offense currently.
Edmonds has it again. Edmonds around to Stevens. Stevens with the flick huck, looking for Baker in the end zone. Baker's got a beat on his man, but from behind, it's knocked away.
And honestly, whether he caught that or not, it wasn't going to be a particularly good decision. That was into coverage, and the pass was floated up such that the defender had an opportunity to get there.
Rumble started off, have to go the length of the field. Lee uncorks, big shot. Will carry all the way into the end zone, and going up to get it is Fisher.
Wow, that big throw from Bo Lee. That's one of the things that we've seen over the course of the time that he's been playing is when he has an opportunity to unleash a giant flick like that, it takes the top off of the defense and rewards any player who can create that much space downfield. Boston is rushing right now. They need to get back to what it was that has gotten them as many wins as they have in this season over I believe they're at 5-2 right now. So they're feeling pressured and they're feeling threatened. So they need to be careful of being, sort of like an animal that's cornered. You can't just lash out. You need to retain your composure and know what it is that you are going to do with your teammates to get you back into this game.
10-5 now as New York has doubled up the Whitecaps. 6:57 left to go. Historically, Boston has owned New York in the history of this league. I believe New York has beaten Boston just one time, and that was in 2014.
It was just once, and it was in a home game for New York. It was a particularly sloppy game. It's a low-scoring affair. I think it was 18-17. It could have been 17-16. It's right around there somewhere. It's a one-point victory, and in that game, it seemed like neither team could catch. It was very windy. That's not the conditions that we have here today. It's very calm out here. The wind might be somewhere around 5 miles an hour, a little breeze.
If that, yeah.
And that's kind of interesting considering how many storms and rain that we were concerned about earlier. Maybe we're in the calm of it. One way or the other. New York is doing what they needed to do. They're doing everything correct right now, and Boston is simply not.
And all kinds of line mixing and matching. Sam Rosenthal trying to find that right combination. That last one, as they came out on offense, obviously they're shorthanded, but we saw Rob Baker, Eric Stevens, Jordan Taylor. Those are all defensive line players.
And that throw went up to Baker on a good deep cut. He was open by 2 or 3 yards when that disc went up, but the disc was a high arcing outside-in flick that gave the defense an opportunity to catch up and make a play. And to the defender's credit, he did actually make the play as opposed to just letting it happen.
Again, both teams using a timeout. Boston called it first to regroup. New York follows them right up. And we'll get the midfield pull.
Are we sure on the order of those timeouts? Was it, if New York had called the timeout first and then Boston calls the timeout? I'm also curious about how the timing will work on those. How long can you wait to call that other timeout? So I think we had a situation last week where the team that wanted to call the midfield timeout waited too long, and they had already lined up, and they didn't actually get to have the midfield pull. They had to go back and pull from their own end zone.
Lose it.
Use it or.
Or lose it. That's right. It'll be Brownlee again. First attempt sailed out the back, but New York got it anyway. One a little bit more of a blade on it, and he will pin the Whitecaps back. Taylor will start it off right up to Cooper.
This is tight.
Stall count getting up there. Jess gets it off to Little. New York very aggressive defensively. Little finds Taylor. Taylor sends it deep downfield for Katz. Katz will catch up to it. Edmonds, the only man coming downfield, quick enough, but he drops it back for Foster. Right around to Little. McNaughton. McNaughton looking for the end zone, and Edmonds floats it up enough, and Edmonds comes down with it. It's about the best point we've seen Boston have in a while.
Yeah, that's their first goal since last quarter. That's impressive, meaning that not only is it difficult for them to score, but New York's been converting the breaks.
Yeah.
So they've got 2 separate 4-point runs at this point. And again, Philadelphia was unable to put on more than a 2-point run all of yesterday. Whatever the secret for New York is, Boston's got to be careful. Maybe they start spreading that secret around to everyone else in the league.
So 10-6 now the score, and 6:27 left to go. Boston's defense will appear for the first time in a while, whereas New York, they kind of just have those hybrid lines left and right, interchangeable, and most guys play both sides of the disc.
Which is one of the ways that you end up with players who are near the top of the list in terms of points played over the course of the season, is that they're playing both offense and defense. And here we've got New York. New York will have to deal with Boston's midfield roller pull, which is a good thing.
Going to try a trap with Stevens and Murphy.
I think it's good for Boston to try to take New York out of their comfort zone.
They get it out. One-on-one matchup towards the end zone. Compton and Braz takes it away from him. And slow, well, still on the ground. Not even slow to get up is Compton.
And that's the sort of play that Boston is trying to make you do in that situation. They want you to take a shot downfield or take a contested look underneath or a crossfield hanging something or other. And New York kind of played right into their hands with that decision. Hopefully, it's not an actual lasting injury here and he'll get back into the game later. But New York is putting themselves in a tough position.
Excuse me, that was Andrew Mythos. Those bright cleats.
No, I think Mistos was the one who has either come in or was going down to help Compton get off the field. I do this all the time. It's Sisto and Mistos. For some reason, I can't keep those names straight in my head.
So the Whitecaps will get their first chance at a break in a while as Braz finds Terry Roth. Nice upline cut by Wolf. Goes
Excellent
up with the
catch.
left hand for a catch. Fakes a big OI backhand as Ryan Richardson was headed downfield, and now he's stalled out. But then New York throws it away.
Seemed like he wasn't even aware that stall was going to come for Boston.
Richardson's got it back quickly. This will be close. A bid from New York. Just missed it. Maybe mistimed it. Terry Roth has it, drops it back for Katz. Boston looking to swing it. Braz, Wolf, Richardson. Richardson back to Stevens. Stevens is who they wanted in the hands of, and just around the end zone as he throws goals, and he gets that one into Terry Roth.
There we go, and Boston's gotten a break back, has confirmed that they can still play defense. They hadn't done it in quite a while, but they still have a long uphill run ahead of them if they want to get back into this game and get a victory.
5:23 left in the half.
The key for that entire point was just that New York chose that very first throw to put it into the end zone. Yeah, they had 2 players going into that space, but Frederick Bratz had a much better position and had a much better read on the disc. If New York wants to know how to play from ahead, they need to not make errors like that and just be confident in what they normally do.
Andrew Hooker directing traffic, making sure everyone knows their matchups for Boston's D-line. Trying to get another break. They've cut it down to 3 in their back-to-back goals. Pull floats in to Cannon. Gets it up to Casey Starzl, one of the newer players here for the Rumble that they picked up just a couple of weeks ago. There's Lee. Back to Starzl.
New York were largely working out of a side stack here, isolating a lot of space on the field up on the far side from the camera.
Starzl's got it again, looking toward the end zone for Doyle, and Doyle's got it ahead of Sam Richardson.
I'm going to say it didn't look totally scripted in terms of what New York was doing there. They got a little out of sorts here and there, but they stuck with it. They maintained their composure, delivered a nice shot there in the end.
Jacob Doyle gets the score. It's his 7th of the year. And Starzl with the assist is his 1st of the year. Again, I believe it's only his 2nd or 3rd game played.
Yeah, he was certainly a midseason addition. And now Boston is back out on offense, and after you've been broken 3 straight times, twice in a game, your offense starts to doubt itself a little bit, wondering whether they need to do something different. And it's not totally a team-level thing. It's individual players. So talk about Taylor had that laser huck at one point. He may be second-guessing his hucks for the rest of this game. Although if you're just a shooter, shooter's got to shoot.
Shooter's got to shoot. That's right. Foster finds Edmonds. Edmonds sends it back to Cooper. Cooper fakes a throw to Taylor. Now Cooper sends a flick through the middle of the field, and it's knocked down by Irvin.
Foster was open deep there. The throw just had to be higher up. It's always a problem when you're throwing over a vertical stack. You need to clear those players.
Weintraub finds Brownlee. Brownlee gets it up to Sands. Back to Marquez. Sends it around to O'Connor. O'Connor was looking for Weintraub, cut off. Now he's going to put it in the upline cut to Brownlee, and then Brownlee trying to quickly put it in. Layout bid from Irvin. He's looking for the bookends. Just goes off his fingertips.
Same thing we saw yesterday on a couple goal line throws is you want to be quick but do not hurry.
Right.
Brownlee was led well with the pass to him going upfield, but he wasn't entirely sure what speed his receiver was moving into the end zone, so he threw it a little too far out ahead.
Taylor has it back in his own end zone. Hulk yard sees Edmonds going deep, and there's a hand block as Meeser
Nice hand block.
gets a piece of it.
He didn't even use the hand that is traditionally on that side of the field. He reached across over in front and got his hand all the way out.
Weintraub starts it off up to Brownlee. That one brought in
Awkward little catch, but he made it.
by Sands. And then Taylor just gets in the middle of the dump for Weintraub. Gets a block back, and then he uncorks deep down the field looking for Katz. There's some contact. Katz shakes it off, and he's got himself a goal.
Yeah, so I think Jake Taylor is firmly on the shooters got to shoot side of that equation. He had no second thoughts about putting that one up. That's a good thing, too, because Boston needed to get out of that point. They had given New York 2 opportunities to score the break, and thankfully for them, got out with a goal.
Well, coming into the weekend, Jake Taylor was about a 95% completion percentage. So for a guy that throws a lot of passes is very good. As we get a timeout called by Boston, and it looks like they will be setting up a midfield pull, potentially.
Yeah, I think that's the right decision here. They're running out of time in this first half, and that would be their first midfield pull, I believe. Yeah. So they want to make sure they can get back into this a little bit. It's a 3-point deficit right now. If they can get either a 2-point deficit or a 1-point deficit going into half, they will be confident coming out in the second half that they can make up the difference against the Rumble, but they need to get into half without having this deficit get up to 4 or 5 because it's this sort of thing where they just need to have a little bit to collect themselves. That halftime is a perfect moment for that. They can talk about what New York's been doing against them, have a little bit of time to process what they're going to do to counter that. Whereas right now, it's just that you have a couple moments here and there. You get your guys, you get your offensive line to talk about things, but you don't necessarily have the time to talk specifically about which players are going to do what specific things. And when they're mixing their lines, as they are this weekend with a shorter roster, it can be more difficult to get that execution down perfect.
3:02 left to go, trailing by 3. The Whitecaps will get the disc, I believe, to start the third quarter. Stevens with the midfield pull. Drops it in nicely as it gets tangled up in Mott's legs. He's able to stop it from going out the back. Klimkowski has it. Sends it around to Hunziker. And then Jordan Taylor gets a hand on it.
That's one of the issues when you have
nearly at a Callahan.
Hunziker's flick has a slow release on it, and sometimes that gives the defense an opportunity to make a play.
Dylan Wolf will pick it up and then look to put it in. He's got Sean Doherty, and Boston takes advantage of the midfield pull, cuts it to 2 on the goal by Doherty.
And not only was it a choice that we thought was going to be a good one for the Whitecaps, they got a third throw turnover out of their own end zone, and it was a situation where they might have almost been able to get a Callahan there, but I'm sure they'll settle for just the goal and an opportunity to get another break on this Rumble offense.
And another timeout called here, this time by New York. Boston was out of timeouts, so both teams have used all three here with 2:35 left to go. It's 11-9. Boston threatening a little bit of a comeback here. It's their second break of the quarter.
They had 2 breaks in the first quarter as well, so it's not as though the New York offense has been playing impenetrable offense. It's more that their defense has gone on the runs that they've needed to go on to get a lead of 2 before this first half is out.
As I said, Boston coming off the 24-20 loss last night to the Spinners. Again, the playoff seedings are all set now, both on the East and West, as a result of the Dogfish losing out West last night. So we know who the 4 teams will be. It's just a matter of where the games will be.
And to be fair, out in the West, Portland has been hosting the Western Conference Championship
Hasn't
game.
mattered.
It just doesn't make a difference. They keep losing to these teams that are finishing second and then taking advantage of something about Portland once they get into the playoffs.
That big game.
And we like to say that, that doesn't necessarily affect them. But when we talked to some of the Portland coaches and players when they came out East, they were still talking about what they need to do in the playoffs and the fact that the regular season they feel very confident in. But the games last night on the West Coast were just total blowouts.
Yeah.
Portland won by 17 to the tune of 29-12, and the Rainmakers beat the Dogfish 20-11. And in both of those games, it wasn't totally over early, but it was domination from the beginning of the game to the end of the game.
Both Portland and Seattle have shown an ability to score at will this season, it seems.
It's a matter of some teams, like Boston, for example, doesn't get on these huge runs against their opponents. They just tend to chip away bits and bits, these little breaks over and over again. But Portland and Seattle, it seems like once they crack the code of their opponent, they're just totally relentless and just go on these charges of 6-1 runs, 7-1 runs.
Nearly defeated Boston. Their one loss actually seemed to have cracked the Whitecaps in the second half, but maybe just a little bit too much to come back from after being down in the first half. Has had a chance to win, to send that game in overtime. Just came up short, or too long, I should say.
That's perfect.
They came up long.
Threw it just out the back. Wasn't even an opportunity for the receivers to make a play. It's a tough way to have the game end.
Boley fields the pull for New York, who is playing without Scott Zoo today, one of their leaders offensively.
Also plays a lot of points for them. I think he's second in the league in points played coming into the weekend.
This one bit too much for
Mott.
Yep.
Yeah, and Klimkowski just let him out too far, and he had to turn a little bit, so it wasn't a straight line that Mott was able to continue running in. He had to change his angle as well as accelerate.
Hooker took his time to get to the disc as Boston can cut it to 1. Richardson finds McNaughton as Boston continues to mix their lines. Katz fakes a big hammer.
I thought he was going to throw that. There was an open player in the end zone for the hammer there.
DeBaz around to Richardson.
It was Richardson who was in the end zone. He was still open all the way back for that swing pass.
There's Murphy. Murphy up ahead to DeBaz. DeBaz sends a hammer to the end zone, and there's McNaughton. As Boston's cut it down 11-10.
Yep.
Third goal for McNaughton, and he's got an assist to go along with it, too.
Saw a lot from him yesterday. I expect to see the same today. He's the sort of player that you need to match his speed as an individual. You also need to match his awareness and his ability to take advantage of a step here or a step there. In this situation, he's such a threat to the open side of the field that the thrower was able to just put the hammer all the way out to the far side and let him run onto it. Again, with that speed, he was able to threaten one side of the field and then get to the other side of the field before the defense had a chance to do so.
So that's the third Boston break here in the second quarter. Matches New York's breaks for the third. And they're on a 3-goal run here.
Yep, and it's their second 3-goal run of the game, and it's proving to New York that their lead is not safe.
I'm going to roll this one out to the far side now and employ that trap again.
To be fair, I think it would be foolish for New York to think their lead is safe against Boston of all teams.
Connor picks it up, sends a long flick across the field to Brownlee.
Gets him out of the trap, resets the field.
He finds Finkler. Finkler's got Van Meeser.
Weintraub and O'Connor have already made 2 good deep cuts that haven't been thrown to.
Excuse me, that's Jimenez. This one bobbled, says very close was Terry Roth. Gave him just enough to disrupt that.
It was a throwing error.
Sands
It was not to the correct side of the receiver. The defensive player made the play, but he was put in position by the offensive throw.
We're under a minute now left in this first half, and now Baker puts it up for Wolf. Wolf tiptoes the line and stays in. Wow.
And you can see that his jersey is all red from the track that he just laid out onto to get that catch. And we don't have the benefit of replay on this particular game, but that looked really close to the end zone, to the back line of the end zone there for me. I'm not certain that was in, but
very close.
I had the feeling as that pass went up that it was just going to sail totally out of bounds. But the effort by the receiver there in Wolf to give all the effort that he could, keep his feet down. Although we're not sure if his feet were necessarily in the end zone, but they were down on the ground as he caught that one.
It's tough sometimes to tell as we've got the lines out there for lacrosse as well on the field, the yellow lines.
Yeah.
But it's the white line in the back. That's the back of the end zone. But pretty nice afternoon so far for Dylan Wolf. He's got a goal and an assist after a bit of a tough time last night against Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's a tough game to play in generally for both sides, as those two teams are at the top of their games and to the top of the conference. Today, he may feel a little more space, a little more comfort in the game today as he's working in with his teammates. He's a recent addition.
This is his first weekend.
Yeah. So it's the sort of thing where it takes you a little bit to get used to it. And here we're going to see Boston put them on the sideline again. They've had success with 2 other possessions already.
They rushed to get it out. Bo Lee picked it up and got it to Patton. Hunziker around to Mott. Mythos, good to see him back in there, was headed deep.
Yep.
Trying to outrace McNaughton.
Yeah, he had steps on McNaughton, but it looked like McNaughton was baiting it.
And works out for him.
Yep.
Gets a block. Boston can take the lead going into halftime. There's just 17 seconds left. Katz, I don't know where he was throwing to on that one. So 10 seconds left for New York. Mythos has it.
New York's got to get a goal-scoring opportunity here.
Mott is open. They send it out off the hand of Patton into the end zone. Boston back there defensively. It's tipped a couple of times, and we'll head into half tied at 11.
Oh, my. The end of that second quarter, end of that first half, that's the sort of thing that both teams are going to walk away from that point saying we should have had a goal getting out of that one.
Yep.
Hunziker made the great individual effort to get his hand up there. He probably should have caught it. It did hit him in the hand. But Boston wasn't able to use their opportunity to get a break and go in with a lead. Instead, we're stuck at 11s. And as we were yesterday when we were stuck at 8s, basically this first half never happened. We're just going to play play 20 more minutes of Ultimate and see who the winner is.
Neither team really takes any sort of momentum going into halftime, but don't go anywhere. We'll take a break here for the half, and when we come back, get the second half of action. It's 11-11, Boston and New York here at Bell Stadium.
He was able to hang on to it anyway, Bert. And now he puts up a blady flick to the end zone, but a leaping grab by Hauser. That's an incredible catch for the score, Bert.
Great catch there, and Ostergaard and Hauser connecting yet again. These two have really been a joy to watch.
And then Glazer, maybe even too easy to bear in the end zone. And almost a Callahan there, and a beautiful play by the Philadelphia Spinners, David Brandoff.
And you can see the disappointment from DePaula there as he got hand block up high here on the scuba attempt, and Brandoff lays out, takes it away from over the top of the outstretched hands of DePaula. That's Philadelphia exerting their will here.
Matt Glazer of the Philadelphia Spinners made the most of his time on the field in a Week 8 win over the DC Current. He is having an MVP-like season, and he kept it up in this one. 3 goals, 2 assists, and more importantly, completed 15 of his 16 passes in a 20-16 win over the Current. That makes him your Week 8 Eastern Conference Player of the Week. For Major League Ultimate, I'm Jeff Poster.
Against Casey. So then Gibson going cross-field to Davis. This one didn't float the way they would have liked to, and looks like Patrick Lindsay and Davis, and they're going to call the goal. They say it a 50-50 goes to the offense. Antoine Davis did everything he had to do. He had 2 spinners who had better position on the disc, and somehow Antoine Davis pulled it in. Bryant looking for the end zone, and easy floating it in. What a beautiful throw to Tom O'Connor by Izzy Bryant.
That's the same throw that we saw early on in the game from the DC Current to make a goal happen early on for the break, I believe. It's the same sort of thing. You sit up an outside-in flick, and you let the receiver chase it all the way down. This very first throw, I was surprised that they put it up to Bryant. Accurate. And then he takes his moment, sees that it's a one-on-one shot in the end zone, delivers the disc to the far side of the field. Either the mark has to stop that, or the defender has to be ready to chase on the far side. The defense wasn't working together.
The rain didn't stop the Rainmakers handler, Henry Fan, as we take a look at the Western Conference Player of the Week. Fan gets a Callahan right here. That highlighted his athletic day. Ended up with a goal, 3 assists, 2 blocks, including that Callahan. The Rainmakers would ride Fan's talent all the way to the 20-11 victory over the Vancouver Nighthawks. And that names him your Week 8 Player of the Week. For Major League Ultimate, I'm Jeff Poster.
Oh, that's an early turn here.
My guess is that the first point of contact was somewhere on his arms out of bounds and not his legs that landed in.
It looked like his toe got it. As a high throw goes up from Vancouver, it's going to float, and that's going to be Deed there. But it's a turnover on the first throw. Now Seattle looks to score quickly. A flick huck down the right sideline. Oh, a nice grab there by Klein. That's Davidson. He puts up a flick huck down the field. It's going to be contested. Oh, and an excellent D there. That was number 8, Harrington, who gets it back to Fan. Fan with a backhand into the end zone and a score there, Bert. What a throw.
Yeah, it looks like the defender knew that was a little bit too aggressive on that layout attempt.
As Hunter puts up a throw, but that's going to be hand blocked, and another block at the end there. He gets it to his man. Feely puts it towards the end zone. It's going to float. A leap, a grab, and a score. Number 8, Dylan Harrington. High stall count as Shu sends it into the end zone. It's going to be Deed there. A nice defensive effort by Chris Rupp.
Break Scuba.
Yeah.
Right on the money, though, to Victor Chang.
And now Chang looked like he kind of stepped back with that flick. Not just with this team, but with a lot of young teams at the college level a lot of times. As we see a layout and a grab, number 7, Henry Fan, our player to watch with the Callahan.
So far this quarter, and that's what they'll do.
As Hunter puts up a big bladey flick into the end zone, it's going to be Deed, as you mentioned, Bert. A high throw, but Hoy corrals it, now puts up a flick downfield. A leap and a sky there for this Vancouver team. And we see a turnover near the end zone. That's your man, Henry Fan, as Rupp dumps it to Fan, and a Fan with a quick backhand in the end zone. A leap and a grab and a score for Robin Breen. And we're almost about halfway through the third quarter here, Bert. As an excellent layout D there for Seattle. Hauser's flick to a layout grab by number 2, Ostergaard. Back to Fan. Fan with a floaty flick. It's low, but an excellent layout grab by number 0, Chris Rupp for a score.
And Graham Barber, the guy you like to see, with the nice scuba there.
As Nadon has it now. He puts up a hammer into the end zone, and that's going to be his score. He was able to hang on to it anyway, Bert. And now he puts up a bladey flick to the end zone. But a leaping grab by Hauser. That's an incredible catch for the score, Bert. You want to be able to practice these kinds of scenarios if you can. And now a flick huck down the field. Got flow to it. A leap and a D there for number 8.
Regardless of obviously, you're giving up yards in those situations.
But quickly as Hauser puts up a flick huck down the field. Has an open man. It's going to float. But an excellent defensive effort there from Vancouver. Now a flick. 2 open receivers for Vancouver. Oh, but that's going to be Deed.
Randolph looking at the huck deep to Billy Sickles, a former Rookie of the Year. And Sickles starts this off. Himalaya Meta looking up line and just again gliding 15 feet, and looks like there for the D.
Antoine Davis on the D there.
Griezmann, the handoff to Bartenstein. Bartenstein puts it up in the back of the end zone, and easily coming with it on the other side, the man number 17, Eric Miner. Here's Youngblood. Youngblood looking for the man, cutting in the middle, and with the D, finishing it up and catching it himself. Here's Salmi with a stack on the far sideline of the field.
They didn't even get 10 yards on that. They were fortunate to get an opportunity for a goal here, and this is Martin.
So Lindsay, and we're going to see Greg Martin, and that's why Greg Martin was our player to watch for the Spinners, pulling it in with the left hand. And now the do, they eventually throw it up. It would have had to be a spectacular play. We've got a high stall count already, so throwing it up there into traffic and then picking it off. So Gabe Colton then not only got the D, but then started it to Peck, to Bryant, and in the end line for Greg Martin.
They're getting really harried by all the Philadelphia players.
And now Flores. Esser is right behind throwing the man, but it sets the man in front. Patrick Lindsay with the D. Bryant looking for the end zone, and easy floating it in. What a beautiful throw to Tom O'Connor. Pick up 20 yards there, and now going ahead upfield. It's going to be another deep look, and there for the D, they say no foul as Wickens got the D. And then Glazer, maybe even too easy to bear in the end zone. And almost a Callahan there, and a beautiful play by the Philadelphia Spinners. David Randolph getting the foot block, and then the Callahan.
That play was individual excellence at its finest. And you can see the disappointment from DePaula there as he got hand block up high here on the scuba attempt, and Randolph lays out, takes it away from over the top of the outstretched hands of DePaula. That's Philadelphia exerting their will here. That was an opportunity for DC. They couldn't even complete one pass. They needed that break.
And David Randolph, we'll get another look at it here. They bring the double team, and then knocking it up into the air, and then the layout by Randolph, getting his one hand in between the two hands of DePaula. Hiranet, the strike cut in. Then Hiranet, that dish just floating up in the air, really not anybody's. And now almost a 2-minute point, as now Sickles is using his body really, really well. And up over the top, another highlight reel grab for Billy Sickles to make more options. So here's Bryce Dunn. We're going to see some athleticism from Dunn. And Dunn with 3 black shirts again. Bear from Radums. Now Meta. He's got height. He's got the room on Cobb, and so he gets the sky. Current still down by 5. Salmi to Ferraro. Ferraro, and the layout block there by Esser. So Dave Bear able to get up to about 35 yards off his own end zone. Racing downfield is Radums.
Radums was going up as if it was going to be 12 feet off the ground or so.
What a beautiful catch there. Here's Moses waiting for the cut. The hand block by Trey Katzenbach.
But the fact that the turnover is all the way down here is just making it even that much more difficult for DC to get back down the field.
So the Current try to give it right back. Gibson, the 50-50 disc up in the air. Gibson on the second attempt against Casey. So then Gibson going cross field to Davis. This one didn't float the way they would have liked to, and looks like Patrick Lindsay and Davis, and they're going to call the goal. They say it a 50-50 goes to the offense. So Nick Hiranet just jacks it down deep. But Billy Sickles has a few steps on Healy, and so Sickles may have been fouled as well. Speaking of positive, Bartonstein has had a pretty positive game here, and so here another highlight reel play for DeWico Johnson, and they get one throw ahead to DeWico Johnson, and he lofts it in to Moses, who's able to get a shoestring catch.
However, they love attacking the, after the break so much.
Beautiful catch by Moldenauer across the middle.
Everybody, welcome back to Bell Stadium in Orange, New Jersey, as we get set to start the second half of action between the Boston Whitecaps and the New York Rumble. I'm Jeff Poster alongside Dusty Rhodes here in Week 9. Just joining us on our MLU live stream. It was an interesting first half where both teams struggled and made runs, but we end up tied at 11.
Yeah, and we're at the point now where Boston has 6 breaks and 5 holds. New York has 7 breaks and 4 holds. So each team is more efficient at scoring on defense than they are on offense. Their offensive scoring efficiency for Boston is 41.7. Offensive scoring efficiency for New York is 33.3. Defensive scoring efficiency for Boston is at 50%. Defensive scoring efficiency for New York is at 58.3%. So in really basic terms, it seems like what both these teams need to do is get their offense off of the field and put their defense on the field. Maybe they should just play their defensive lines on offense and forego this whole notion of having separate players for their O-lines.
Well, we kind of have a game here today where neither team has set lines either, because Boston's shorthanded and mixing and matching, while New York has been mixing and matching all season.
One way or the other, this should be an interesting second half because New York is closer than anybody expected them to be coming into the second half, and Boston is trying to figure out what it was they were doing wrong in the first half that let New York be so close.
Boston starts off with the disc here in the third, but immediately coming over and getting a D was Mott.
It was Kyle Fisher there.
Fisher?
Yep. He just came underneath and set that play up. If Boston had 20 more yards on the field, perhaps it would have been a completion, but they didn't.
New York looking for a break to start things off. There's Doyle. And it was going to be Fisher with the bookends as he went down, had it in his left hand, and it popped out as he hit the ground.
Yeah, didn't complete the catch, but it was a good opportunity. The pass could have been much easier and much softer delivered to him.
Foster sends it out to Cooper. He's got McNaughton trying to use his speed downfield. If McNaughton can catch up to that one, I would have been very impressed. He lays out and comes up short.
Yeah.
Slow to get up, too.
If McNaughton can't
He's
catch
hurt.
that, there wasn't anybody else who was going to catch that, and he really didn't need to throw his body after that disc. He was about 5 feet short of it when he laid out there, and this is the reason that you don't want to do that. You got to know that anything can happen when you throw yourself at the ground.
He's had a history with injuries, too, for the Whitecaps, and not a guy they would want to lose.
And the throw from Cooper, it was a good idea, but he didn't have the edge control, so it didn't bank back toward McNaughton. It faded away from him, and it also didn't sit up high enough for it to make an easy catch.
Going up with Starzl, makes the catch, manages to stay in bounds, but then throws it right through Bo Lee's hands. So Boston on the edge of the end zone. Cooper waits for the rest of the offense to set their stack, and now picks it up. And then throws it through the defense and into the hands of Ben Katz.
And the cut there from Katz was a very threatening cut for a defense to deal with as he ran towards the front cone of the end zone on the far side of the field. And as he got his defender to commit to that space, he just broke back in toward the center of the field, and the easy pass was delivered for the goal.
Boston retakes the lead. It's their first lead since they were up 4-1.
They were up 4-1, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It seems like a whole different game at this
Back
point.
in the first quarter on a goal scored by Foster, thrown by Ben Katz. Katz has got 3 goals and an assist. 2 assists.
Now we'll get a look at what New York will do on offense. I wonder if Boston will go right back to this midfield roller or if they'll go for the deeper pull. They're going with the deeper option, which should be a little more comfortable for New York. They weren't dealing with the midfield roller well at all.
Mythos brings in the pull. Sends it around to Patton. Roth bid for the D. Didn't quite get it. Klimkowski has it. Back to Patton. One-handed grab. Now Patton sends it deep, and Braz elevating. Takes it away.
Great awareness on his part.
Hooker fakes a big hammer. He's got it right at center field. Doherty. Back to Hooker. Hooker was looking for a little give and go with Doherty. Doesn't do it. Instead sends it back to Braz. Braz has DeBaz coming around, but instead heads to the near side for Roth. Roth floats it back to Braz. Drops it back for Hooker. Boston doing a nice job swinging here, using whole field.
Yeah, they're working pretty well in tight quarters. Their offense isn't making a lot of space, but they're using the space that they have.
Wolf gets it back to Hooker as they continue to swing this. Braz going the wrong direction, though. Now Roth again on the near side. It's taking a lot of throws for Boston to try and punch this one in. DeBaz again now looks for the end zone. Richardson has to lay out, and he can't get to it.
Yeah,
All those throws for nothing.
that throw, that's the second or third one we've seen thrown down towards this end zone that it's just been thrown too hard and too close to the back of the end zone rather than being right in the receiver's sort of easy catching zone. They've been laying out over there, and it looks like New York is going to call a timeout. Everybody on the field right now looks pretty exhausted. It's only it was only a 2-minute point.
It's a lot of throws, though, as they're chasing around the disc, maybe.
Right, so it may be a function of that. It may be a function of exactly not being up to game speed for the second half yet. Sometimes the halftime, you come out of that and you're a little bit sluggish.
Innova is proud to support Major League Ultimate and its incredible athletes as the official disc of the MLU. The Innova Pulsar has quickly become the disc of choice at Ultimate's highest level. Visit innovadiscs.com to find a dealer near you. Skippy, the official peanut butter of the MLU. Made with the funnest peanuts ever. Skippy Yippee!
Speaking of fun trips that you can go on, I made a trip out to the parking lot where Ultimate was
telling me that
invented by some players in this specific area. It's just
New
about
Jersey,
2
yeah.
miles from here. Took a picture of the plaque out there. We used to go out there and throw back in my Club Ultimate days because it's just that sort of history feeling to it. And I got to tell you, it's really interesting to know that there's a plaque out there for it, that it's just in
definitely.
one specific spot out here in Maplewood, New Jersey. And while it's not the sort of thing where you have overwhelming emotion, it is this sort of like moment in history. It's like a monument of any type that you'd see down in D.C. or somewhere else. And I recommend it. If anybody involved in Ultimate, if you find yourself in this area, coming to a Rumble game or going to anything in this area, just check it out. It's not too far off of 78. You're right up 124 there, and go check it out.
Take it in and just know that you're in a piece of history right there.
Yeah, you gotta know what came before. You gotta know your roots.
So out of the timeout, both teams subbing out pretty much everybody.
Yeah, I don't see any holdovers for either line
either
right now.
as I scan the field.
And this is actually kind of a tough spot for New York to take a timeout in. They're trapped all the way on one cone, all the way back in the sideline. So Boston is sure to have some sort of plan here, although they almost got caught off guard there, or they were looking to disguise their plan.
Cannon just barely gets it out to Hunziker as he was double teamed by Murphy and Stevens. Up to Meeser. Meeser sends a big backhand deep, and that will stay out of bounds on the far side of the track.
And that's not the sort of result that you want to get after calling a timeout. They didn't get
ever inbounds.
Exactly. They didn't get to stay in. They didn't get the result of the specific play call that they had, but once they got into their offense, they didn't generate anything downfield that was anything more than throwing it straight down the sideline.
Boston will try to use the sideline themselves, and Murphy tiptoes the sideline and carries it all the way into the end zone for a score as the Whitecaps go back 13-11 off the throw from Stevens.
That's actually the 6th straight point that the Whitecaps have scored. They scored the last 4 of the second quarter, and they scored the first 2 in this third quarter, and that's the sort of thing that will send them into the remainder of this game with a little bit of a mental advantage, a little bit of momentum if you believe in that sort of thing in sports. Some people do, some people don't.
It's Nick Murphy's first goal of the year.
Their ability to get out ahead of this again with 4 minutes gone in this third quarter, they've only scored 2 points, but those are 2 points that the Rumble did not score.
Yep.
So the questions are all about the Rumble now. We've turned the tide back a little bit, and the Rumble haven't scored since 5 minutes into the second quarter. So it's been a bit of a drought for them.
Boston on a run.
We talk about Ultimate being both a game of mistakes and a game of runs. This game specifically is absolutely a game of runs. There have only been 4 goals scored that didn't have another goal scored by the same team right next to it. So generally, that is a heck of a travel. And you travel again afterwards. That's precisely the sort of travel that should be a turnover.
That was
you
Weintraub.
traveled again. I got to stop watching this because that'll be all I talk about for the rest of the game is travels. So, New York is working out of a little bit of a vertical stack here. They've got some good motion.
Meeser drops it off right away. Continuing on to Weintraub. I think he just did it again.
You got to be careful with your eyes. You can get too tracked into one thing.
Right.
Boston's defense is not as tight as it was during the first half. I'm sure that's partially a function of their being tired, but I think it's also a function of New York learning to exploit that tightness. So if you have a player that's either over-aggressive or particularly faster than you, you can use both of those things against them.
Irvin drops back for Weintraub, finds Patton. Patton looking to the end zone, and this will carry out. He's looking into the corner there for Finkler.
New York's looking a little bit shook right now. I'm just not sure what it is their bread and butter is. These are those moments where you need to dial in and go with your best plan on offense or go with your best lineup over offense and defense. And New York doesn't seem to have a specific thing that they want to do.
Hooker starts it off, gets it out to Terry Roth. Inside New York's end zone. Sends it around to Braz. Braz sends a flick back to Roth. Wolf.
Yeah, both teams are dragging right now. If Boston can sort of wait this out and just maintain possession of the disc, they'll be at the advantage, because if you're tired on offense and your opponent is tired on defense, the offense has the advantage.
Braz on the far side again. Finds Wolf in a big layout bid. Knocked away as New York will get it back.
That was a fantastic commitment there to getting the block by Measer. He read the play, and the receiver slowed up just enough as Measer was accelerating through to get the block.
Fingler's got it right in front of his own sideline. Puts it out, and Roth will just knock it down.
Patton there thought it was for somebody else. It clearly wasn't. He was the only player there who had a chance to catch it, and you got to know that if you have a chance to catch it, just catch it.
Another timeout.
Doesn't necessarily matter if it's for you. Goes for offense and defense. The disc is near you, just catch it.
Just catch it. Otherwise, you lose it. And that's what New York just did. And 3:27 left to go, 13-11 the score. And timeout on the field, called by Boston. They'll sub out.
So that's been 3 straight long points already. The first point was almost 2 minutes long. The second point was just over 2 minutes long. And this point is already into the 2.5 minute range. So we're going to get a bunch of subs back in for both teams here. The last time we had a timeout, we saw what New York set up. And then Boston went into a quick double team to try to take them out of the play. New York threw it off the side of the field. The key here for Boston is to come up with a play design that will deal with whatever New York throws at them, and ideally not throw it off the side of the field. At least keep it on the field, but they want to generate a scoring opportunity. It looks like they'll be putting out mostly their offensive players here.
Yep.
And New York will be putting out a largely defensive line.
Little, Edmonds, Taylor, McNaughton, Hulkyard, Foster, and Cooper coming out for Boston. Got Bo Lee, Koshinosh, Doyle.
Got Kyle Fisher out there who's been making some plays today. I've been impressed with his speed on a couple different instances. I'm always intrigued to see what coaches draw up coming out of timeouts, because in ultimate it's not about coach control. It's more like soccer where you don't have so many stoppages. And when we do have these stoppages in MLU, we often use them for the midfield pulls.
Right.
And instead, here we get to set up exactly what it is you want. What are you going to go to? So Boston is setting up here in a horizontal stack. Often what they do in a horizontal stack is they have 2 players peeled deep and 1 player cut across the front of the offense.
And there goes McNaughton heading deep.
And there was Foster cutting across the front of the offense.
Just 1 player going deep that time, but
Yep.
still the same type of setup.
Clear out some space, send somebody through it.
Edmonds fakes a big huck. Throws his man off him.
It's good defense from New York out of the stoppages as well. That's one of the reasons those passes didn't go up to Boston.
Starzell and Carter were the last 2 Rumble players to come in out of the substitution. Hulkyard continuing right up to Foster. Foster gets it to McNaughton. He's got, well, he had Edmonds initially in the end zone. He's got him again. This time outside the end zone, and he's got Cooper. Goes in for the score. As Boston continues this run, it was 11-7 at one point, and it's now 14-11.
It's precisely what the doctor ordered for the Whitecaps. Right now, they've turned it into a 3-point lead, which matches the biggest lead that they had, which was, as you mentioned earlier, back at 4-1. And now New York, if they're going to get back into this game and threaten in the fourth quarter, let alone the remainder of the third quarter, they're going to need to go on a run of their own, maybe 2 separate runs of their own. They proved the ability to go on those runs earlier with both a 5-point run and a 4-point run, but I'm not sure they have it left in them. They look a little bit out of sorts right now.
2:42 left to go, 14-11 the score as Boston's gone on this 7-goal run, back-to-back breaks here. After a hold to start off, New York's still looking for their first score of the second half, too.
Yep.
This pull will carry and hang up for a bit. Now comes down into the hands of Klimkowski. Misthos. There's Mott. Mott trying to get around Herskew. Hunziker. Back to Mott.
It's a good mark there from Herskew to stop the swing.
Mythos again. Man going deep, or excuse me, Compton. And there's a pick against New York. Compton was ready to send that one.
Doherty sold out to stop that easy throw going straight up the line also.
Compton's going to do it anyway. Roth leaps for it, but he can't catch up to it or can't hit it, and New York's got the goal.
And they finally cracked the seal there and managed to get back onto the board in the second half. They're still behind 2, but just knowing that it didn't turn into a total out-of-control run for Boston is what New York needed. And now some of the players who haven't played this half yet for New York are going to get back out onto the field and work on their defense. Well, I guess they played in the very first point a little while ago. It just seemed like it was in the previous half. But they've been off the field for a little bit. They'll get a second chance now to try to break this Boston offense.
Klimkowski gets the goal. Compton gets the assist. And makes it 14-12 with 2:05 left to go. Another good pull. Takes a hop. Matt Little fields it. Starts off Taylor right away. This one is not going to turn in and knocked down by Jimenez.
Yeah, that was a good play by him. That's the second defender that they got deep. The original cut from Boston was very open, but the pass was delivered in such a way that the second help defender could get there.
And there was a bid from Little. Couldn't reach up and get that one. New York holds on here. Jimenez has got it back. New York trying to get a break. Brownlee sends it across.
Nice break back across the field there.
Mark Sands. O'Connor continues. On the hands of Irvin. Back to O'Connor.
New York's swing passes and short passes have been good.
To the end zone, and there it is. New York goes in. Jimenez with the bookends.
That's a late bid there from Taylor on the catch. It's unfortunate that he had that much contact. It's reminding me of that play yesterday where a Philadelphia player, Tom O'Connor, ended up taking out one of the Boston players.
Yeah.
It's not quite as head-on-head contact. They're not going in opposite directions, but it was just as late a play and just as ineffective a play. He had no chance at getting the block there. The pass was delivered to the right place, and the receiver already had the disc. When you're creating contact, specifically significant contact, after the receiver has already caught the disc, that's how you can tell that you are not making the correct play. In any case, Boston has given up a break to New York here. So we're still dealing with this issue where there have been a total of 4 goals throughout the game that have not come in pairs.
And it's a 2-goal run for New York as they cut it down to 1, 14-13, and a minute left to go in the third quarter. Taylor and Cannon, little bump in exchange. Herskew also takes small hit from Carter.
A little bit of foul there to get the 10-yard bonus. It was close enough that Carter may have almost had his hand on the disc.
Herskew upline cut from Taylor, gets it to him. Right to Hulkyard, one-handed grab there. Hulkyard. I don't think Foster was ready for that at first, but good job collecting himself and getting the score.
Well, that's the thrower there saw that Foster's defender had turned his back. So as long as you can clear the defender, there's not even an issue whether Foster was cutting for it or not. You sit the pass up, it banks back towards the receiver. Foster makes a reasonably easy catch in the end zone. And it's a really quick score there for Boston. It took 21 seconds. And that'll give them another opportunity to break back against New York before this quarter ends.
Foster's got 2 goals this afternoon. 5 on the year. Does not score a lot, but he will throw the scores
as
a lot.
opposed to that assist total.
He's up over 20 now with this game. Or he's at 20, exactly. He only has 1 assist so far today. Unofficially, of course.
Averages out to 4.5 on the weekend per game.
Still pretty good.
And now we're back to that midfield roller.
Well, that was what got them the lead back. Murphy and Stevens again, starting it off against Klimkowski.
It's an interesting thing on those midfield rollers. A lot of time, the offensive team's thrower.
Mott will look towards the end zone. He's got a couple of players deep. Baker and Doherty, I think, was the one who actually got the hand on as Boston knocks it down. 20 seconds left to go here. Boston with a chance to put it back up by 3. Stevens sends his big flick downfield. 2 New York players. It's tipped by Mott.
And if they have 10 seconds left.
5 seconds, and they throw it away. Boston might have a chance if they can pick it up and throw it. They got a timeout, I believe. Yep. James Kulinski signaling the timeout.
Wow.
Nice heads up by head coach Sam Rosenthal.
Indeed.
Boston will have see what they put on the clock, maybe 2 seconds. Enough time to get a throw.
Yeah, exactly. And so they'll get an opportunity. We saw a couple timeouts yesterday from Coach Stanley of the Spinners that managed to save possessions. But here, we're not only saving possession, we're creating a goal-scoring opportunity that didn't exist before that. I'm not sure what Boston was thinking taking that deep shot. There were 2 New York Rumble players down there, one of which was Mott, who we've seen go up over everybody to get this multiple times. But as we were talking about that midfield roller, one of the things that the offensive teams seem to do is their thrower will just sprint to the disc and pick it up in a hurry in order to either not have the double team on them or something along those lines, but the rest of their offense isn't down the field. The offense is still behind them and sort of in the midfield scenario, so you're not getting enough players downfield to challenge 6-on-5. So if you have 1 player with the disc, 2 players marking him, the rest of the field should be a 6-on-5 scenario. If your players aren't downfield near the defense, you have no way to take advantage of that unless you just reset it backwards. New York has been picking up the disc in a hurry, waiting a little bit, and throwing a big cross-field swing. Perhaps what they want to do instead is pick up the disc and just reset it back, not even worry about trying to look upfield. Or maybe just wait. Don't pick up the disc right away. It rolls out the side. Don't be in a rush. Just wait. Set up your players where you want to, and then pick up the disc and see if Boston maintains their structural integrity with their double-teaming mark.
It's possible, because then Boston would have to potentially commit a player off of that double team.
And the thrower in those scenarios, as he's trying to chase that disc and get it back into play, the one thing he's not doing while he's chasing the disc and watching it roll around on the sideline is looking downfield to assess where the defenders are and where the offense is. So you're getting an issue where the thrower isn't prepared for what he's going to see after he picks up the disc and puts it into play.
We'll see what Boston comes in.
There's apparently just 1 second left on the clock now.
Now it's 1. It was 4. So they've got their guys in the end zone, Foster, Katz, Hulkyard, and McNaughton. Stevens actually stays out as it looks like Cooper will pick it up, and I imagine Cooper will send a hammer.
The interesting thing here is, so they were leaving Taylor uncovered for a moment.
Sure does. Sends the hammer across the field. There's going to be a collision of bodies, and Hulkyard comes down with it. Knocks a couple of guys down in the center of the box, and he's got it, 16-13.
Now, if you're going to toss the disc up into possibly a crowd, possibly a place where there are multiple defensive players, Hulkyard's the guy that you want to find. He creates space around him with his strength and size, and he also maintains that space and goes up in the air. We saw him yesterday take the disc away from Tanner Johnson on his own team for a goal. So if he has that callous disregard for his teammates in terms of getting those stats, what do you think he's going to do to his opponents?
Exactly.
He's just going to go up, let them bounce off of him, collect the pass from Cooper. I'm sure that was specifically what they scripted there, as Cooper knew exactly where he was throwing it. Hulkyard seemed to know exactly where he was going. If you can score with 1 second on the clock, you can score at any moment in these games. Controlling that 1 second, getting that timeout, running the play. That's why Boston's getting back ahead of this game. They've got a 3-point lead going into the fourth.
And Cooper has such a quick release on that hammer, too. It seems so casual for him the way he throws it.
The interesting thing is that the mark didn't really seem to get up off the ground. Was he not thinking that a hammer might be an option? Was he expecting that something else was going to happen? When you talk about like an inbounds play for basketball, a lot of the things what you do is you just jump up and get in the way. You just try to be distracting, be large. There was basically no distraction and no movement from the mark there. You have to put a little more pressure on.
To do your advanced scouting and a guy like Alex Cooper, too. We knew up here that hammer was coming.
It wasn't just us. There's some other folks up here in the press box who said just before they came in, you know what I would do? I would just throw a hammer over there.
That's right.
Precisely what he did. Now, how they managed to clear out enough space so that it was just Hulkyard over there.
It's a different story.
We didn't get to watch the entire play develop, but kudos to Boston for getting a score with 1 second left on the clock.
And Hulkyard came across because he was lined up more on the near side, at least when they came out onto the field, so he just sent his speed across the field.
A little bit of misdirection, see if somebody's going to go with him.
Exactly. So it'll be 16-13 in the final 10 minutes here at Bell Stadium. The Rumble have another comeback in them. They were down 4-1, the same deficit of 3, and went on a nice run. Back in the first quarter, which ended up winning out that first quarter 6-5.
It's still like, so Boston scored the first goal, New York scored the second goal. Boston scored the next 3. Then New York scored the next 5. Then Boston scored 1. Then New York scored the next 4. Then Boston scored 2. New York scored 1. Boston scored 4. No, Boston scored 7 because that goes from the second half into the third quarter. And then New York scored 2. Then Boston scored 2. Neither one of these teams has been able to consistently put their offense out on the field and just rely on them to score consistently. Everybody's getting broken, so it's a sloppy sort of game. That's the thing that New York can take into this fourth quarter. Boston's offense hasn't prevented them from getting a bunch of breaks. It's been a mess. It's been the sort of thing where anybody with the right level of aggression and talent can take control and make a couple plays happen. So New York has hope just because of what this game has been so far.
Well, Boston headed out onto the field. New York now heading out.
Unfortunately for New York, they're starting on offense. The offensive conversion rates here today
very low.
Not been very good. So we'll see if they can keep up their end of the bargain and get their defense back on the field.
Mythos, Compton, Mott, Cannon, Hunziker, Sisto, and Starzil start off for New York. Boston has Murphy, Ryan Richardson. Eric Stevens will be pulling Frederick Braz, Dylan Wolf, Terry Roth, and Jordan Taylor. And Stevens will pull.
New York's only converting 29.4% of their offensive points. So they've got to get an easy one here to set up for the rest of the game.
Hunziker's got it, and he can definitely do what he just did, send it deep, but it'll take a Herculean effort for Sean Mott to get over for that one.
The way that Hunziker ended up throwing that, he was under duress from the mark. The mark was responding to his every move, knowing that this was going to be an isolation play, and it forced him into a bladey throw. Didn't have enough float on it, and didn't put it out well in front of Mott in order to give him an opportunity.
Wolf's got it from Stevens over to Taylor. Murphy. Ryan Richardson. Richardson, an off-balance throw as a result.
Good quick pivot to get across to the backhand side again.
Stevens sends it over to Braz. Back to Richardson. Richardson with a fake, and then a toss over to Stevens. Stevens around to Roth. He gets it to Braz. New York's defense one step behind Boston on each throw.
Nick Murphy's been doing a lot of work on this point, pushing downfield, coming all the way back into the handler area. It's been looking pretty strong right now.
He's had to take on an elevated role this weekend with the lack of bodies, and he's shown up.
Certainly showing the speed.
Roth's got it again. Braz. Murphy looking for his second goal of the game, and he's got it on cue.
Yeah, Klimkowski just wasn't able to keep up with him over the course of that point. It was almost as though Murphy was trying to show him what the entire field looked like. No, chase me all the way down, chase me all the way back, and we'll see if you can keep up with me step for step over this many cuts and this many iterations of it. Boston breaks to start the fourth quarter, and that's what we're talking about, where the offenses have been suspect for both teams in this game.
Second goal of the game from Murphy, second of the season. As I said, he's been a depth guy for the Whitecaps for most of the season, and he's had his number called with the lack of players this weekend, and has definitely answered the call.
Ryan Richardson was also all over the place in that point. He got that one pivoted backhand off that it looked a little off balance. It seemed to be well enough in control, but he was also making the necessary cuts, was playing strong defense before they got the turn. This is where Boston's depth is starting to show.
Not normally a phrase you would use on a team that's, I think, with 21 bodies today.
But if you look at a team like Portland, they never really bring more than 21 to 23 players.
Told us that they generally only play 22 guys each game. Weintraub was pinned up right away. O'Connor wants to get it back to him. Call him for that travel.
I mean, it's not the first one he's made during the course of this game, so take the 10-yard loss and see what you do next.
Gets it right back from Meeser. O'Connor again at the center of the field. Sends a long one over to Irvin. Weintraub again, kind of the main handler here on this point. O'Connor, Meeser coming under. He finds him. Right back to Weintraub. This is a nice cut from Weintraub. Sends a hammer to the end zone, and Brownlee, he looked away from it, and he ends up dropping it.
The reason I'm laughing isn't because of the drop, it's because of the reaction of literally every fan in attendance made the same sound and put their hands to their head at the same moment. It was almost scripted.
Rare drop there for Marquez Brownlee. So Boston with another opportunity for a break as Katz looking for Sam Richardson. It'll carry. Richardson does catch up to it, shy of the end zone. He's got Doherty coming in, drops it back for Baker. Baker sends a blade for McNaughton. He jumps up and he rips it down with the right hand.
And all he had to do was find McNaughton. McNaughton had lost his defender quite a while ago and was free in the end zone. The only people next to him were other players' defenders, and they didn't have enough space or time they didn't have sufficient time to cover the space that they had given him.
Boston's starting to really open this one up. 3 straight breaks going back to the end of the third quarter.
Yep. That's their 4-point run going back into the last quarter, and at this point, New York's going to have to make up a 5-point deficit with 6:49 left to play. It doesn't look good for New York.
4 more goals for McNaughton in the game. Puts his total up on the season to 16. He's got an assist to go with it. He's been the Whitecaps' leading points man this season. Again, Boston tends to spread it around. They don't have guys with crazy high numbers in the stats department. They keep going to this side roller because it's working.
Well, you also don't have to run as far when you're on defense. You can just sort of jog down and see what New York does.
Save some energy with their depleted roster. New York picks it up, and again, it's Stevens and Murphy. They have the ones been employing that trap. That one, Taylor got, I think, a fingertip on it. Still carries in, though. New York's got it, and they send a flick across the field, man, all alone on the other side of the end zone. And New York's got one back.
Yeah, I'll tell you, not only did the Boston defense lose track of him, I lost track of him as well. When I saw that pass go up, I couldn't figure out who it was to. He was just blending in with the grass in the end zone.
So New York cuts it to 18-14 with about almost 6.5 left to go in the game.
Looks like we're going to get a midfield pull here.
Ryan Schwartz was the mystery man over on the other side of the end zone.
Uses cloaking device just
Yeah.
for a brief while there.
And now with the 22nd timeout, New York sets up for the midfield pull. Looks like Cannon will be doing the honors this time. New York is 1 for 2 on successful midfield pulls today.
Just keep it in bounds, right?
Yeah, exactly. See what Cannon can do. Put some more spin on it than Brownlee does, and it ends up being only about 5 yards deep. Taylor picks it up, finds Hulk yard. Boston in that horizontal again. Edmonds back to Taylor. Taylor and Cannon, two of the taller players on the field, trying to get around each other. Hulk yard beats his man to that one. Foster marked by Mott. Foster's blade cross-field throw. McNaughton a layout bid, but comes up short.
He really does like throwing the over top ones, but if you miss your mark, your receiver doesn't have as much time to get up and make the catch for you.
Carter finds Mott. Mott looking for Lee. And maybe that game of 4-goal runs seems to continue its trend, because Boston got their 4, and now New York's got 2 of themselves.
So that's the thing. You're never out of a game if you can go on a run, if you can prevent the opponent from scoring. And the nice inside low backhand from Sean Mott, that's a very pretty throw to watch happen there. You have to get it out around the defense that's charging to the same side and then sit it back towards your receiver, and he executed it perfectly.
Well, the midfield pull might not be exactly the reason that New York gets the break, but they get it all the same. Off the tough throw from Christian Foster looking for Piers McNaughton on the other side of the field.
Yeah, it was just a sort of a standard swing pass. It wasn't even for a yard gain. It wasn't going to be a giant possession swing or anything, but instead it just ends up giving New York an opportunity for another break.
Brownlee will pull for New York with 5:50 left to go in the game, trailing 18-15 to Boston. Both teams with 1 timeout left. Taylor's got it. Finds Herskew. Now Edmonds.
I was curious that he didn't throw it to Katz here on the close sideline. It's very open, but
Stevens sees McNaughton with a beat on his man. This will carry into the end zone. McNaughton catching up to it, goes up, and he's got it. The speed of Piers McNaughton.
all you have to do is keep it out in front of him and make sure it doesn't hit the turf too quickly, and he'll give you a good chase. Runs it down for a goal there to put New York back up by 4 goals with 5.5 minutes, 5 minutes, 26 seconds left to play.
5th goal of the game for McNaughton. He's had an impressive afternoon here against New York. As it's starting to get darker here, that beam of sunlight we saw briefly in the first half has vanished.
Yeah, it's mostly overcast, though. Doesn't look like we're going to have any issues with...
At least in this game.
Yeah, it doesn't look like we're going to have any issues with lightning or anything. It doesn't look like there's some rain on the horizon,
There's definitely
however.
some ominous clouds here.
The mood has
in
changed.
Orange. Yeah, definitely.
The
light's
storm is
not
coming.
on, though. Storm's coming. Can feel it. DeBoz with the pull for the Whitecaps. Carries in to Mythos. Around just enough. Sisto. And a whistle and some contact. I believe on the mark from Jordan Taylor. So 10 yards here for New York.
New York working out of a vertical stack primarily now.
Compton was headed downfield. Humziker gets it back to Mythos. Mythos has got about 2 feet on Dylan Wolf, who's marking him. Hunziker directing traffic, telling Compton to come back under. He stays out there, though. Huck looking for Compton in the end zone. Baker there with them, and Baker knocks it away.
There's a lot of space over there for Mott to throw into. I can totally understand why he's trying to get it over to that area. Baker gave good chase, got up early, made the block, but New York's dealing with time now, so those looks that you wouldn't necessarily take earlier in the game, you definitely need to take now, and you need to convert.
Wolf gets it to Murphy. A lot of contact after the catch. Now we have a whistle.
I mean, I think it was definitely a foul, but
Patton.
the Boston player is just asking for it so early. He could just play through that and see if the ref calls it rather than making a show of things so quickly.
Murphy sends a blade over to Wolf. He can't catch up to it. New York within striking distance now. Mythos gets it over to Hunziker. Drops back for Patton. Hunziker again.
Yep. New York doesn't have motion throughout the whole of their offense.
Hunziker puts it deep. Sisto's there. A couple of Boston defenders coming over. And Sisto skies above everybody for the goal.
Yeah.
What a catch.
Sometimes it doesn't matter how well you box someone out. They're so much taller than you, and they go up at the right time that they just put a roof over you. It's good.
Climbs the ladder.
It's a good hold there for New York. They needed that. Now it's a 3-point game, which is almost manageable. And in this game where almost everything has been 2 goals or 3 goals at a time, we'll see what comes next.
Still holding on to that last time out. Not going for the midfield pull here. With 3:36 left. 19-16 the score.
I'll tell you, the last thing that Boston wants to see is an overtime game. I think some of their players have they haven't been on the field for a little while here coming into the second half, and I think it may be sort of injury or tiredness catching up with a couple folks. I don't think we've seen Hooker in the second half at all, maybe a couple points here or there. And you can see folks they're a little tired. They want this to be over.
Fight through another 3.5 minutes.
And if New York can fight harder during those 3.5 minutes, there's still a chance for them.
Absolutely.
A lot of space for McNaughton over there. That's the last thing you want to see as a defender is McNaughton with a lot of space.
McNaughton finds Katz. Edmonds was headed deep. Picks it back up again. Taylor, I think, was initially looking for his flick to Edmonds. Instead goes to the backhand for Foster. Foster gets it to Little. McNaughton again. Foster taking off for the end zone.
Nice easy point here for Boston so far. Looks like a pick at the front of the stack. A little clumped up.
Edmonds will drop back 10 yards.
New York's got to figure out where they're going to make a block happen. How are they going to disrupt the Boston offense?
Taylor's got it to McNaughton. Piers looking for Little. And Little actually caught that and ran into the end zone, didn't come back out.
Disagree with you on this one. He showed excellent footwork because he kept his left foot out of the end zone before he threw it. I was just going to mention that.
You have the keener eye,
He got his feet going nice and quickly there and got the disc out of his hand in a rush. He never actually came to a stop, and it's just to his credit that he was able to do that. Noticing that right away, and you were on the right path because I was starting to think that he ran into the end zone, but then I played it back in my head a little bit and saw that he kept that left foot down. It's good work on his part. Not many players can do that well.
So Ben Katz ends up getting the score from a nice move by Matt Little.
It was. It's not easy. You got to have foot control. You got to have body control. You have to be able to get the disc out of your hands quickly, and you have to know where your feet are to know that it's not going to be a travel.
Well, Boston certainly missed Matt Little and Ben Katz last night. I would have loved to have them, as they've both been big contributors here today. Katz has 4 goals and a couple of assists. And Boston uses their final timeout for the midfield pull from Stevens.
I think that's pretty well out the back.
That's way out.
Got the goalpost. You even hear the little ping all the way up here.
Might need a new disc after that.
Well, they'll leave that one back there for the next team that has to deal with a midfield pull. Which, well, if it's the next point, could be Boston.
20-16 the score, New York. Time becoming a factor for them. They got 2:43 left to go. Oh, and the layout bid from Mythos was short.
Interesting choice by Sam Richardson there not to catch it and keep it in play. That's going to give them a little more time coming off the clock, but it could make it a little tougher to score from here.
Boston needs just one or two more to really put this away. Braz finds Richardson. A whistle, some contact.
I think there was contact on the mark, though. I'm not sure there was sufficient contact to call.
Richardson to Richardson.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out which one you were calling.
And gets it to Braz and Herskew. Terry Roth. Roth looking at the end zone.
A lot of space over on the break
Stall
side.
count getting up. And he did get stalled out. He had just released it, and the whistle came.
Yeah.
So New York gets it back, but they're under 2 minutes now.
Getting no sense of rush here from New York.
Klimkowski looking to give it to somebody. Sends it back. New York not in any hurry.
It's like they don't understand
And
that time is
Braz
a
lays out.
factor. I mean, if you're just going to throw a swing pass that can get blocked, you might as well chuck it down the field. You're down 4 points with barely over a minute left.
Stevens wastes no time and throws it in to Sam Richardson. So that time they do not milk the clock. They take the goal, and that might just do it here. The fans headed for the exits.
Yeah, it's pretty much comfortable to call that one. That last possession showed no sense of concern for the clock for New York, and then Boston turned around and got an easy goal after their next turnover. Boston was able to weather the early storm in this game. It's impressive on their part, considering how many breaks and how many just goals in general they gave up in the first half. Their ability to come back, use those midfield roller poles, use their tight defense all over the field, despite the fact that they were playing with a smaller roster than New York was today. It's all to Boston's credit in terms of their depth and in terms of the way their coaches deployed them today. Just another midfield pull, just to test it out again, figure out if it's going to get another play.
Working.
And Murphy gets all the way down there.
He is
in
quick.
a hurry. He's still ready to go.
Long crossfield pass for Brownlee. Grabs that one. Marked by Katz. 1 minute left to go. And this one is D'd up, bobbled around by Wolf. Finally comes down with it. DeBoz has it. Drops it off for Foster. Foster back out there with the defense, where he's familiar. And then Murphy, a little bit too much.
He's throwing as
Very
fast as
close.
he's running on that one.
Yeah. Too much for Katz. And there's some stoppage.
We're just getting the clock stopped here. Under a minute.
That's right.
Yeah. Under a minute, it'll stop so that we don't have to deal with players chasing discs out of bounds too quickly. Brownlee throws it directly to Piers McNaughton, who's standing in the center of the field.
It didn't even move.
Still hasn't moved and still hasn't been marked.
Murphy's got it again. Katz is still hanging out in the end zone for Boston.
Just going to rock this one to sleep, it looks like, for Boston.
Finds Wolf. I don't know. Some of these guys, like Murphy, he wants action. He wants more playing time this year, and he's going to. Katz, did he tiptoe? He did. Well, that's a way to finish a game if you're Ben Katz. He looked at the disc, took a quick look down at the sideline, put his toes down, and hang on for dear life.
I mean, it'll get the goal there, and it'll help Murphy's completion percentage, but that's 2 straight passes that Murphy sort of rushed and was throwing off the side of the field or off the end of the field there at the end. So, yeah, he wants to get his playing time, but you don't earn playing time by throwing questionable passes for the most part.
Both to Ben Katz, so I wonder if maybe Katz goes over to him and says, come on, give me something a little easier.
I tell you, it's one of the things that concerns me about this field generally, not just for MLU, but for everybody who plays here. The track is so close to the sideline that we've seen a number of players who are trying to toe the end line, toe the sideline. They end up laying out with their chest out onto the track. They're outstretched there. That can't be a good feeling or a good look for anybody at all. Really got to question why they would build it that way.
So just 11 seconds left. Boston now with the 22-16 lead. They are going to improve to 6-2. New York will fall to 2-7. They have just one more game, and it will be against Boston in Boston.
This is the roller straight up the center of the field.
New York airs it out or anything with Cannon. Fans are looking for something. Lee sends it deep. Doyle's back there. It's going to be out the back, and Doherty will snag it down anyway, and that's the way the game comes to a close. Boston weathers the storm there in the first half and ends up holding New York to just 5 scores in all of the second.
Good work on their defensive end. New York wasn't able to match Boston over the course of the game, even though they jumped out early. Boston's mental strength and their ability to stick in this game, even after they were challenged very early on, that's one of the reasons that they're consistently at the top of the Eastern Conference every year in the MLU. It's when they're down, they don't believe it's over, and when they're up, they don't let their foot off the gas.
Ben Katz and Piers McNaughton both had 5 goals in this one. Katz had 2 assists, so I'll call him the player of the game for this one. Comes back into action after missing last night's game. And Boston keeps the pressure on Philadelphia, has to win out, at least at the moment, in order to secure that home field advantage. So big win for the Whitecaps, and the Rumble showed some more progress. And we said it off camera and off air between the halves that if New York can keep this group together for the years to come, they definitely could be a threat here in the Eastern Conference.
And they showed all that brightness early on in the game. They just couldn't maintain it over the course. That's one of the signs of a young team. You have to learn how to do that. It doesn't just come to everybody so naturally.
Well, that's going to do it here for our coverage in Week 9. Boston will be back home to take on the Current next week. There's also the Women's Showcase game, so we will have that covered for you as well. Be sure to tune in for that. New York is off again next week. They'll be in Boston the final week of the regular season to finish up the 2016 MLU year. On behalf of Dusty Rhodes and our camera person Dana Matson, I'm Jeff Poster, and we will see you next time.